Welcome, Chumash and Rashi. We are continuing with the fourth reading. Actually, the fourth reading in a double portion, we go from the first portion to the second portion. Since there's 7 portions, so the middle one is the fourth that traverses the two. So let's get right into it. Okay. Vayikra, Leviticus chapter 13, verse 55. Speaking about affliction, lesions. Continuing actually with boldness and with clothing. Let's go right. Okay, Berah HaKoyin, and the Koyin has to see, to examine, Ache Hukabes, after it was cleansed, cleaned, washed, it's a nega, the lesion, the affliction. Is Einai. So the nega, which is again the lesion or the affliction, did not change its color. Can let the beat in. Thanks. The nega and the lesion, loipasa, did not spread. Tamehu. So here we're talking about now a garment, right? So 1 second. Right. So there was some kind of discoloration on the garment. Right. This is pretty unusual. But as we mentioned, that this is kind of like it's a heavenly thing. It's not too earthly. A discoloration on the garment, right, that has this appearance of this nega, this lesion. And previously, we learned yesterday that it was cleaned, but it was quarantined for 7 days to see what would happen. And now after it was washed, so it didn't change color and it didn't spread yet, but it makes it impure. And therefore, by Eish Tesarif, you have to burn this garment. Heches, it's a deep lesion, bekarachte, begabachte. That term, karachte, begabachte, okay, let's see what Rashi's going to say. Because it's a term that was used before for balding of the head, and here we're talking about a garment. So we're going to wait to see Rashi now. 55. After you wash the affliction from Lashon, he also is having been done already, a passive verb. In other words, the affliction did not change its color. It didn't become dimmer from its original appearance. Right, it didn't become more intensified, the red or the green, right? Those are the colors that make it impure. Right? Because if it did intensify, then obviously that's a sign of impurity, but it didn't, right? So it remained, in other words. But yet it did not spread. From here we can infer that if it did not change color, but Shim loy hapfach, then changes color, but loy pas, that's very tame, it is impure. And therefore, all the more so, you don't have, it goes without saying, loy hapfach, it didn't change color, possible, but it did spread that you'd be impure. Hafach veloy pasa, or if it did change color, right, it became more intensified the color, but did not spread. Oh, 1 second. Sorry. No, the any idea then I'm not certain what shall be done with it. The change of color does not refer to dimming in the color, because in the next it says that if it became dimmer, then you are pure. But if what if it changed color? In other words, from green to red. So this we don't know what would be, says Rashi. Just he's the inference over here. Then you should close off the quarantine, the affliction, meaning the garment. Kol makom in any case. Yehuda, that's according to Reb Yehuda. But the sages, they learn out differently in this verse. These are as is stated in the Medrash. The Ramaz Tiha Khan. I have alluded to it here. To put the verse in proper understanding. Whoa. I have a bunch of questions over here, but I'm not going to go into it. Peches who? It's a deep-looking lesion. Lashon gumma. It's a term of deep, meaning indented. Coming back about chosim in one of the ditches, meaning a ditch is deep. Kalaimar, shafal that it's something low, nega shemarim shaking. That's an affliction that appears sunken in. Okay. Now, the term over here it says "bikarachta bigabachtai." Kitargumai, unclis, the way he translates it. How does he translate it? B'shachasiku b'chadasucha. Suse. That's Aramaic. When it's worn or when it's new. Aha. Wow. Interesting. Before it meant karachte was you're bald in the front. Kabachte, bald in the back, right? So here, front, back means worn and new. Interesting. Not certain. Let's see how that comes about. Okay, Rashi goes on the word karachte. Shechakim yeshanim, old or worn clothes. Mipnei midrash, as the midrash explains. Shozach l'gzeir shava. They're required to make a gzeir shava. In other words, new and old are equated to each other. Minayim, where do I know? That an eruption in a garment and an affliction that covers the entire garment, shehi tahira, that it is pure. Because the term, this is a term, as we mentioned. Okay, now he's explaining why this term would be used by a garment in a different context when it's used by a person, right, that has a lesion, the front of the head that's balding or the back of the head that's balding. So he says, because this equating the two together. And it also says this term by a garment, which, doesn't seem to be a similar idea. But why is it equating? Malahalan. So what is in regard to a man? Parach bikulai, that he was afflicted entirely, his entire body. We learned this previously. If your entire body had lesions, you're Torah, you're pure. Which is, of course, counterintuitive, but that's the way it's learned out from the verse in verse 13. We learned earlier. Afkan, so likewise here with a garment. Parach v'kuloi, that if it there was it grew in all of it a lesion, Torah, it's pure. Like so that's why the term is used in mikarachas lashkarachas gabachas. On the subject of the explanation, and the translation, this is its meaning. Karachas Lashon Yishanim. The word karachas means old ones. Gabachas Lashon Chadashim means new ones. It's as if it's written at its end. Because Musa in its beginning. So like on the head, okay. So now the connection is like this, right? If you have a bald spot in front, that's at the beginning. If you have a bald spot at the back, it's at the end. So the beginning of a garment means it's a new garment. The end of the garment means it's an old garment, right? That's the relationship. Just a reminder that in Lashon HaKodesh, in the Hebrew language, in the biblical language in particular, the words, there's limited words in the biblical language of Hebrew, and one word could be used to mean so many different things because the content of it is an idea that its context could mean several different ideas depending on its context. So that's the idea here, which is fascinating. Okay. 56. Imra Kohen, and if the Kohen saw Vihine, and behold, Nega, that the lesion was dim, after you washed the garment, Vikara, I say, then he must rip the garment, Mina beged, from the garment, or from the leather, or mina shesiv or from the warp or the woof threads. Kara I say you have to tear Rashi mokom anega mina beged v'yisarafua. So now all you have to take, instead of previously, right, you had to burn the whole thing. Here it became dimmer, the color, right, after the 7 days. So what you need to do is just rip out that part that had the lesion, burn that, but not the whole garment. That's the difference between, right, previously and now. 57. And if you'll see lesions further, you'll see it, babegin. She doesn't even say the word lesions over here, right? But if you will see, again, in other words, it's going to reappear oid further, babegin, in the garment, or in the warp, or the woof, or in the leather article, perachasi, and it grew by ishtisafenu. Right? So then if after you did this and it came back, now you have to burn it in fire. It's asher boy hanega, that which you found the lesion on it. Perdachasi, davar it's something that grows again. It's called a beged, you have to burn the entire garment. Okay, 58, yeah, we're good. Or so the garment or the warp or the wolf threads. Or in other words, it doesn't have to be a full garment; it can be just threads from the garment, right? Hopefully, or the article of leather that you will wash the sar mehem nega, and you removed from it the lesions. They were removed from it. And now you wash it a second time, right? Meaning in the water of the mikvah, and it'll become tahir, become pure. Rashi, and then the affliction left them. That when you washed it at first, al pi koyin, according to the koyin, now the affliction left it legamri completely. Right? V'chuba shenis, Rashi, and now you wash it a second time. Lashon tefillah, washing means to immerse it in the mikvah. Right? It's not because you took away you previously took away that spot because it dimmed. So the law is not to burn the whole thing, right? You took away that spot. Now you have to immerse it in the mikvah. And that makes it pure now, right? The chuba is you wash it a lot, you're right, put it into the mikvah. It's interesting that the term it's interesting. Before it was about washing the stain, of affliction, right? To get rid of the affliction. But here it's taking it to the mikvah to purify it. The laundering, except for this one, which is not about laundering, but to immerse. Therefore, Onkelos renders this word that should be immersed. Like the washing of the garments that are purpose of ritual immersion. It uses the same word. Okay. As previously, it wasn't that, but here, it means mikvah. Okay. The last verse in the first parsha Tazria, this is the law concerning the affliction of tsaras, beged atzemer, of the garment of wool, or pishtim, or of linen, or v'shasi v'arib, or of the warp or woof, or called kli, or of any article of leather, l'taharai, to make it pure, or l'tamai, or to make it impure. Now we go to the second parsha, V'yidaber Hashem al Moshe Lemor. We're in chapter 14, verse 1. Hashem spoke to Moshe saying, Zois Tazria-Metzora, and the name of the parsha is Metzora, which means the person who's got this affliction, right? As again, it's translated by many as leprosy, but it's not. But it's a similar kind of idea. Okay, this is the law of the leper of the Metzora b'Yom Ta'aros on the day of his purity. Now we're going to speak about purification. He has to be brought to the kohen. This is the law governing. This teaches us that you don't become pure by night, rather. In other words, because it says this is the law, b'yoim, on the day that he becomes pure. And it's not the night. Otherwise, this is the way he becomes pure. Why does it have to say it in the day? Well, we have to know that. Because the purification can only take place during daytime and not nighttime. And where is this person? He's outside of the encampment. So therefore, the kohen, right, who made him impure by declaring him impure, and that's what makes him impure, that declaration. He now goes outside of the encampment. And he examines, he sees, examines. The kohen examines, and behold, he's healed. Nega tsaras, of the lesion of tsaras, mina tsarua, from the afflicted person, right? So he goes, El mechutz melcha. Rashi says, there's chutz l'shleisha melcha. It's out of three encampments. There's the inner encampment, which is what's called Machane Shechina, the encampment of the divine presence, right? Because that's where the Mishkan was, and the Kohanim, and right. Then he goes out also Machne Levia, out of the encampment of the Levites around, then Machne Israel, then the encampment of the Jewish people, right? As we learned yesterday. Because he was banished there during the days of his um, conclusive defilement. Right. And the Kohen shall command, he has to order. So now he's purified, right? So he now tells him, this is what you got to do. You have to take for this person, two live birds, birds, chayes that are alive, tahiris that are pure, the eitz erez, and a cedar stick, ushnei seilas, and a scarlet wool, the ezav and a hyssop. All right, this is all part of the purification. Rashi, yeah, in verse number 4. Yeah, we're good. Okay. Chayes live prat letrefes, meaning can't be treif. Treif means that it has a wound to it, that it is fatal disease. It's alive, but it's right. Tahiris that are pure prat la'ev tamim, that exclusion of an impure fowl that's not kosher. Lefisha negoyim, since the affliction of tzaras ba'im lashon hara come because of lashon hara of speaking ill. Shu ma'aseh pitu to the dvarim, which is this is the source of Twitter. You know Twitter? You ever heard of Twitter? Tweet, right? You tweet on Twitter, right? They got X'd out. How come they got X'd out? Because when you tweet too much, you get X'd out. You have to get X'd out. You go outside of the community. You're tweeting too much. Verbal diarrhea, as it's called. Lashon hara. It actually was the class that we just, wow, I just, yeah, the class we just gave Sunday, right? There was no Torah, so therefore it requires it for this person to get purification. How? Since who tweets? Tweet. It's birds, right? So therefore, Yetziparim Shemin Fadim Tamid, you have birds that are constantly tweet. Yetzipor Koil, the chirping sound of a bird. Wow. They said is, and he brings us cedar wood. Why? Because the affliction by Malgasas Ruach come because of haughtiness. And cedar wood, right, is a very tall tree. Oshni say lots of azor and crimson tongue of wool and a hyssop. Remedy. What is the remedy that he will become healed from this, from his malicious talk or haughtiness? That will cure him. He has to lower himself from his arrogance against the last, like a worm, like a hyssop. Hyssop is a herb, right? In contrast to a cedar, which grows tall, the herb doesn't grow tall. So the cure here is not only for arrogance, but for also lashon hara, right? Ill talking. Okay. The eitz erez, cedar wood, makal shel erez, a stick of cedar. Sheisol laas, a crimson wool. Lashon shel tzemer is a tongue of wool. Tavuas ahiris is dyed crimson. Crimson is like crimson is a Menachem Hill is what, reddish blue, reddish purple, huh? Reddish purple, yeah. Yeah, that's right. Okay. 5. The Kohen must command order. In others, he slaughters and slaughters the one bird. And the blood has to drip into a spring water of earthenware vessel. Rashi, Maim Chayim, to spring water. First, you put the water in, into the vessel. In order that the blood of the bird, nikr by him, should be discernible in them. And how much water? Revis, at least like 3 ounces. Verse number 6. That's a tipurachaya, and the live bird, yikachoisa, you should take it, meaning the second bird, right? Because the first one was slaughtered already. Ves, eitz, erev, shnei, salas, v'eisai, and together with, it has to be taken along with the cedar stick, with this strip of scarlet wool, and the hyssop, the tavloisam, v'setzipura chaya v'dama tzipor, ashchuta, and you have to now dip. You have to dip these things together with the live bird into the blood of the dead bird that has been slaughtered. Al mayim chayim, with the previously into the spring water, right? Rashi. So the live bird you shall take it. Malamed, this teaches us she'ena godel. You don't join them together. Now, they're not like a lulav. You have the lulav, you have the hadassim and the araves that are bound together. Here, because it's stating them separate, right? So you're taking it because it says take it, not take them, right? It should say take them because it sounds like from the verse that you're taking them all together. No, it says take it. And also with it will be the cedar stick, the strip wool, and the hyssop. So Rashi, right? So they're not being joined together. Ela mafrishim latzmam, but they're sets it apart by itself. But the cedar wood, the ezav, and the hyssop, kruchim yachad, are bound together. Right? Lashon hazahiris, with the tongue of the crimson wool. So the crimson wool, right, is what's tying the cedar wood and the hyssop together. The cedar wood, right, shows on haughtiness. The hyssop shows on humility. So those two have to come together, tied by the crimson wool. It says in the verse, the cedar with the crimson wool and the hyssop. The phrase implies that you're taking all 3 of them together. You might think that they're not included, just as the bird is not included in joining together with the other 3. So too should it not be a dipping into the water, right, of the live bird. It should just be the 3 things that are together. They should not be included in the dipping. The verse says otherwise, because it says dip it. What's it? It's a tzipor achaya, the live bird. So the verse says reinstate the bird into the dipping. They're not bound together, but the dipping, yes. Okay, verse number 7. So now you will dash ala mitaher on the one that is being purified. Mina tzaras, from the one who's being purified from the tzaras, from this, right, this lesion. Sheva Pamim, 7 times, right? We're talking about the person now, right, that needs this purification, right? We're not speaking anymore about the garment, right? We're speaking about the person, right? And he becomes pure. And the live bird is sent on the open field. Then the person being purified, he has to now immerse his garments, meaning in the mikvah. The gilach is called sa'arai, and he has to shave all of his hair. And he himself has to now go into the mikvah, the tire, to become pure. And then he can come back into the encampment. Right? He's outside of the encampment. Right? After he comes in the camp, but he has to remain outside of his tent for 7 days. Can't go back home in his tent, but he can go back to the community. What does it mean? It means that he can't have marital relations. That's what it means. In other words, excuse me, he can go back home. That he could. Sorry. Okay. Number 9. On the 7th day, on the 7th, he has to shave all of his hair, his head, and his beard, his and his eyebrows. Right before, it wasn't. Now it's saying everything. He also shaved earlier, right? Now it's everything. This is called Sa'are, all of his hair, Yigaleach, he has to shave. And he has to wash his clothing, meaning immerse in the mikvah. Barach, it's and he has to wash his flesh, meaning go to the mikvah. But ma'im in water and becomes pure. It says, Kol Sa'are, Klal Pratu B'Klal. So look what it says over here. Lahavi Kol Malkam Echibas Sev Nira. Interesting. There's a broad statement first made, then a particular statement, and then a broad statement made again. Because look what the verse is saying. All of his hair, right? That's a broad statement. Then it goes into particulars. His head, his beard, his eyebrows, right? Then that's particular. Then it goes to his kol sa'are yigalea. All of his hair you have to. So it's broad statement, particular statement, broad statement. Why is it doing that? Either just give the particulars or just give the broad statement. But why do you have to a second time bring the broad statement, right? That's one of the ways to learn to, to learn out from the verse. Klal pratu klal, as we say in Rabbi Yishmael every day before the first Kaddish. Babi kol makam kibus se'er. So why is it saying that? To include any place of collection of hair, any place in the body that has a dense covering of hair, nira, and is visible. That's what you have to shave. In other words, not under the armpits, because that's not visible, or the genitals, that's not visible. That's why, because what's the detail? Your head, your beard, your eyebrows. Those are visible. So that's the detail that's telling us about the general rule. So that's on the 7th day. Now on the 8th day, Yikach Shnei Kvasim. You have to take, you did earlier, you also brought offerings. Now you have to bring more offerings. On the 8th day, Yikach Shnei Kvasim. You have to take 2 unblemished Tmimim that are male goats. So one of the goats has to be a year old, Tmima, pure, meaning unblemished, together with 3 tenths of flour, mincha belula, of fine flour, belula b'shemen, that's mixed with oil, beloig echad shaman, and one loig of oil. Rashi gives achas l'chates. This is for a sin offering. Although it doesn't say that. Later, verse 13, it says it, right? In the conclusion of the discussion of this offering. V'shleisha esreinim, and bring 3 esreinim, to 3/10 of an ephah, and the niske shleisha kivasim halalu, for the poured offering of these 3 lambs. There's a sin offering and a guilt offering for the one who had tzaras. To unim nisachim, they require poured offerings. Loig echad shemen, 1 loig of oil, liyos olav sheva, to sprinkle upon it 7 times from this. Right, not on the person, it's sprinkled towards the direction of the Holy of Holies. Lite mimin, and to give from it, al-tenuchal is known to the cartilage of the ear, matin bahinus, and from the application of purification of the thumb of the big toe. Okay. The Hamid Kohen, and the Kohen who's performing this purification, right? He will stand up the, oh boy, the one who is seeking purification is Isha Metar Be'oisam Lifnei Hashem Pesach Oyel before Hashem at the tent of meeting. Lifnei Hashem, before Hashem. Shar Nicanor, that's the gate of Nicanor in the holy temple. But not in the courtyard itself. Why? Because he's not pure enough yet. Because he's lacking atonement. Right? Because he's got to bring these offerings to have full atonement. Even though he did a lot till now, but he doesn't have full atonement. Lakach HaKoyen, and the Kohen will take is Akefas Echad, he'll take one of the 2 lambs, and he'll bring it as a guilt offering. There's like Hashemen, together with the log of oil. And he must wave them to Nufal Lifnei Hashem, a wave offering before God. And he brings them as a guilt offering, meaning he brings it into the courtyard for the purpose, meaning bearing in mind that it is a guilt offering that needs waving. And you do the waving when this animal is alive. Requires the waving when it's still alive. And he will wave them. And so Hashem, it's a loig. He's got to wave the guilt offering and the loig of oil. The shachat is a kivitz b'makam asher yishchat. He should slaughter the lamb in the place that he slaughters as a chatas, the sin offering, and the scent offering, the Makom Kodesh, in a holy place, because this is, the guilt offering is like a sin offering and a burnt offering, or like a guilt offering, who is a superior level of holiness. Rashi, but Makom Asher Yishchat, a place where he slaughters, on the side of the altar, but often on the north side. Why does the Torah have to say this? Don't we already know this? Torah's Asham, when it comes to guilt offering, in Parshat Tzav, a few weeks ago we had, in Parshat Tzav, Asham, that the guilt offering, Ton Shchita, needs slaughtering. It's often on the north side. This guilt offering has gone out, is from the category of a guilt offering, that fall under the law of being placed. I might think that it's a slaughtering where on the eastern side of the courtyard, near the gate of Nicanor. That's in the place where you slaughter the sin offering, meaning in the north. Okay, not gonna. Chatos. Kol makom v'chatos, in the place of sin offering. Ha'ashem hazeh, this one. Hu lakayin. It is to the kayin. Chol ha'avedus aluis ba'kayin. All the services depend on the kayin to perform. Ushva Hashem hazeh. This guilt offering is made equal to chatos, to a sin offering. So I say, but they should not say, that is, since the blood has gone out. Niklal shar shamais. So it's gone out of the general category of a guilt offering. Nelson is a place to put on the cartilage of the ear, which you don't usually do. But he knows in the thumb of the big toe. You're not required to apply the blood. Morim, as stated in the parts, the Gabi Amizbech on the altar, the Kachnema, that's what Hashem Hula Kayin. It is like the sin offering, the guilt offering, the Kayin. I might think that Dama Nasan Lamaila, the blood should be placed in midpoint to upwards, Chatas, like a sin offering. Teach us the guilt offering. The Torah comes to teach us otherwise, that this teaching the guilt offering, right, that all guilt offerings and guilt offering comes to purify Tazria-Metzora, their blood is applied to the lower part of the altar. Torah's comments. Oh boy. All right. Guess what? I'm going to stop here at 14. All right. Sorry. Whew. All right, folks.
Thank you, Rabbi.
Thank you. See you.